In the brief instant before the transition between Indrupti and Extus, I was hoping that I would get Godzilla and Anguis back. As the board appeared, I saw that half my wish was granted. I had Godzilla back, but no Anguis. I would have preferred both, but despite Anguis's neat abilities, I would have chosen Godzilla if I had to pick between the two. Extus has two different colored temples, white and pink, a pyramid, what looked like some modern buildings, and two other icons I couldn't figure out at the time. The new bosses were Komonga, Gorosaurus, and not Gohodora, whom I was dreading to see alone fight. With Godzilla back, I was excited and eager to explore, yet still cautious. I went to the quiz level first. Just as before, this time the face's questions became more random than ever. Do elephants breathe? Answer, yes. Have you ever been attacked by a family member? Answer, no. Have you ever harassed anyone? Answer, no. What is your favorite color? Answer, no, green isn't. Is the computer the pinnacle of modern technology? Answer, yes. Are you a tough guy? Answer, yes. Can you fly? Answer, no. Can you stand on your head? Answer, yes. Do you hate raccoons? Answer, no. Do you feel blame? Answer, no. Would you like a new monster? Answer, yes. Will you miss me? Answer, yes. I was happy that I was getting a new monster, but the last question bothered me. Will you miss me? Is this face referring to me when I finished the game, I thought? Since the revolution of this game truly otherworldly nature. I wasn't sure what to think of face, or what else in the game, but something about it was the last statement to give me a genuine feeling of sadness from face. I was thinking about this, and the game had gone back to the board. I had a new monster, but I had no idea who it was supposed to be. The sprite had slight resemblance to Rodan, but the head was totally off. I moved this mysterious newcomer to a white temple icon and started the level. When I started the level, the screen appeared with the exact find the gem, presumably instructions for beating the level. After I got my first look at the new playable monster, a hairy dark blue creature that has bat wings and a skull-like face named Solomon. And I also found out that my path was blocked by a beam of light and a small pillar with a plate on it. I figured that this beam of light was blocking the exit, so I have to find the gem and drop it. The plate and deactivate the beam. How exactly was I going to do that? I didn't know. There wasn't anything in the original game requiring you to find an item to beat the level. I would have to find that out when I obtained the gem. The only direction I had to go was on the left, so I proceed. Solomon was an interesting monster. To say the least, he was capable of both fight and the heat beam, which both of them to be provided be useful. He would about kick and slash with his wings, but he wouldn't duck. The White Temple's music was vocalized in choir, or video game approximations of such. It's hard to describe, but it had to be holly around sound to it. I wasn't so long before I started running into the waves of new strange enemies. They did little to stop me. I ran past them while slashing, and it didn't take much damage. There was a pause between each wave of enemies. After you killed about 10, there wouldn't be any for about a minute. Then the next wave would have appeared. After 5 minutes, I noticed that the holes on the floor of the ceiling. The guillotine-mouthed creatures were rapidly flying up and down with these crevices, so I had to time my jumps carefully, because I don't know if I would get another shot at this. Luckily, I had managed to get through without a scratch. I'm lucky, I guess. After that, I found myself at the end of the hallway, facing some kind of mini-boss monster. It moved fast and had some kind of projectile that would shot in all 4 directions. I killed it quite easily, using Solomon's heat beam. When the battle was over, I had my gem, to which it was inside the creature's head. I found it and picked it up and held the gem by walking over to it and holding down. Made a long trek back to start. Deposited the gem on the plate, which deactivated the beam. I left the stage and it was shown that it was probably the strongest quirk relating to the Solomon monster. Every time when you complete a single stage or defeat a boss with Solomon, the screen appears, and I have no idea what Still the Beast 1973 means. Neither the date or the phrase has any meaning of significance to me, but what that I could think of, I've spent a lot of time thinking about it. The next level I played was one called I Bronze Pyramids. I used Godzilla and found that it had been leveled up to twice since the last time I played him in Dementa. The Bronze Pyramids were fairly normal as far as these levels go, but these visuals were getting quite interesting. Almost unusually colorful and lively. The music had a fitting Egyptian style to it. It was slow and mysterious sounding. I scrolled through the level of fighting off various enemies. None were too difficult, although the ants could be a pain if you ran into too many at once. My favorite enemy was the giant reptile I encountered halfway through. At the end of the level, I came to the giant pyramid and engaged yet another mini boss fight. Although this one was a bit different, because I had to fight 2 of these monsters at the same time. Individually, that I could have dealt with them easily, but fighting them both at once was challenging. But I have sped things up by tricking one of the twin beasts into barbecuing each other by jumping when he uses his flame breath. By defeating the twin monsters, I noticed something strange after returning to the board. I was now able to move my monster piece anywhere on the board, without limits. Normally Godzilla can only move 1 to 3 spaces per turn, and Mothra can only move 5. I wanted to try it out and move Solomon some more, so I moved the piece over to the brown pillar looking icons, with colored dots that started the level. When I got to the level, when I noticed that the level icon represented totem poles, I was greeted by 2 of them at the beginning. The music had a Native American sound to it. It seemed to be like the same instruments as the Enotropy Forest. It was noticeably different, but it was just foreboding. I walked around for about 3 minutes with nothing else in sight besides the totem poles. I didn't realize it till then, but I was expecting another level nothing alive in it. After all, activity and entropy, by walking to these multicolored faces, this unnerving level left me like I was being watched. Only for about 10 minutes, even after I started Nexus, I was already halfway through. After getting back from the totem pole level, I tried out one of the TV screens to see how strange they were, but this time, even more stranger than before apparently. The music for this was the Uranus theme. I switched back to Godzilla to play another level, and this level was quite a surprise. It was normal city level. The colors were gloomy, but even still, this was quite a shock. This was the kind of level I would expect to see in a Godzilla game, and I was kind of mad that I didn't get to play it earlier. The music was Earth theme. I found it strange, and having that level fitting Godzilla game would show up this late. But there's no point in crying over spilled milk, I suppose. I moved Solomon over to the grayish icon, which turned out to be a giant high-tech laboratory of some sort. Lots of mechanical drones in this level, but Solomon cleared them through just like the White Temple enemies. The music was gritty, industrial beat, but there was also a strange flying cyborg enemy, which was annoying because it would fly away when you jumped to attack it. Also of interest of these things, the stasis tanks holding some kind of monster inside. As you would guess, sometimes the monsters awaken and shattered through the glass. I tried to get past through the stasis tanks as fast as possible because of the monster inside to be vicious little bastards upon release. At the end of the level was an elevator, which I used to go down to the bottom of the level, where the exit was. Along the way, I was shot by security drones. I couldn't leave the elevator, so my only defense was to heat them. The last level type was something called the Heart Temple, for obvious reasons. Nothing big but a big hallway, filled with floating enemies that shaped like human hearts. They're incapable of causing you damage, so what you have to do is run through the level, smashing as many as you can with all the power-ups. One run through these levels would get your life back up to full, and I would greatly appreciate these levels later. The Heart Temple's music reminded me of the circus tune, that I had an overly cheerful sound to it, which gave the level a really weird feeling. Having seen all these types, I choose to fight the Gorosaurus using Solomon. The music for this level was Jazora's theme. It was during this fight where I realized that Solomon was overpowered. A single well-armed slash can take down as many as full of the enemy's life bars. Due to this, the fight was over very quickly. Gorosaurus had no projectile attacks or anything else could match Solomon's deadly claws, but I kept the fight quickly going on long enough just to see if Gorosaurus would use his iconic kangaroo kick, and I was greatly pleased when he did. Even though Solomon knew my fighting ace, I used Godzilla to battle Komoga, just for the variety, and briefly considered using Mothra, but of course Godzilla won it. Komoga was also a simple opponent. No heat beams or anything. He just attacks by jumping on you, stab it with his mandibites, and he also uses signature webbing stream to paralyze you. Once you got webbed, Komoga will sometimes take the opportunity to attack, but it's most likely a way to buy some time. Just like Jazora backing you into the corner until the time runs out, his music was Hidora's theme. With the Gorosaurus and Komoga defeated, I was at the end of Exodus before I fought the non-Hidora. He was something I had to deal with. I wasn't expecting much from it, but documentation's sake, I took a look at another TV screen, and this is what it was. I don't think I have ever much of a reason behind the TV screens, if only if I were to guess. I'd say it's some random uncontrolled manifestation of the cartridge's abilities. Or maybe all this is make perfect sense to the game. Who knows anyway? Mr. Fawcett's theme was the Saturn music. It was time for the opponent I had been dreading. Not Ghidorah though, I had gained enough courage to Solomon's combat advantages, but I was still nervous. When I started the fight, I was immediately confused. My opponent was not Jazora. I defeated the impostor within a few strikes, and not even Magora appeared. It made sense. In order to not get Ghidorah, I had to battle the previous replacements that I did first. Then in the battle, of course I did. I tore through my way until I finally made it to not Ghidorah, who was a door rat. Once I stopped laughing, I destroyed him with only 2 slashes, and the music stopped. And I thought I was going back to the board when the battle wasn't over yet. The real fight was against the Chimera, a monstrous hybrid of the replacement beasts. This was by far the most difficult boss yet. Every attack would cut down its whole life bars per use. While the attacks against him was greatly weakened, Solomon's slash, for example, was now lucky to take away 1/2 of a life bar. During this battle, I gained a greater appreciation for 2 things: the boss fight time limit and the Heart's Temple had nothing of those things. I may never have beaten this boss. To take down this behemoth, I had to come up with a strategy. I would switch between Godzilla and Solomon as one began dangerously low on health. I would also take him through the Heart Temple while fighting the Chimera with the other. I should count my blessings that Chimera does not regain lost health. Very increasingly about the Chimera was that the colors of the section's bodies corresponded his different body parts, so each body part had effectively had taken its own meter bar. The head was invincible as long as the other parts were present, and it would always be the last part to be destroyed. In addition to being difficult, it was also the longest fight so far. I tried to remember how many times I got taken out of the fight by the me timer, but I lost count around 13. Eventually I had destroyed the components but the head, which was now flew around on its at incredible speed. The Chimera fought very well and was extremely determined, and once it was reduced to the head, he no longer had the power to defeat Solomon, and I heat beat him into obliteration. And the Chimera was no more. I was exhausted and drawn out of the fight and worried that affect my performance at the end world, chase level. The headquarters icon was replaced, but not by the Hell Beast face, instead by a crucifix. I was completely stunned, as I wasn't excited about seeing the Hell Beast icon, but only if there was one good thing about those levels. It were predictables. I had a basic idea of what to expect, but now here at the end of the icon was completely different. What did it mean? And why did the crucifix? It made me uneasy. I attempted to start the level with Solomon, but I couldn't. I got this notice that simply stated, Solomon cannot enter. It didn't say why, but maybe it's something to do with Solomon's demonic appearance. Since Solomon was out of the question, I went with Godzilla instead. Once I saw the level, the crucifix makes sense. The level was a graveyard. I was still on edge, thinking that this was some kind of trick. The last level always involved me running for the demonic beast, and I wasn't going to be fooled to thinking that this would be any different. So I started running, but after a minute without interruption, I slowed down. It was during this time that the music caught my attention. I knew it sounded familiar when I first heard it, but it took a while for me to realize what it was. An 8-bit rendition of Prayer for Peace from the first Godzilla film. It was a very sad, powerful song, even for this form. At 2 minutes into the level, I encountered something that I wasn't sure how to react to. My first instinct was to run, but this blue statue was being simply floated in place. I felt compelled just to stare at it for one time. Since this was a grave, it was floating over the chapel. I guessed it was some kind of angel watching over the deceased. It gave me a strange but warm feeling. I wouldn't say happy, but I felt like I was at peace. Somehow, I had never seen this before, yet it seemed very familiar to me. Just as I was going to leave, the Hell Beast appeared, and its presence wrapped the music into a terrifying, distorted screeching, and transformed the level, screeching the tombstones as a new ground appeared, compares with the blood-soaked bodies. I could feel my heart now beating out of control. I had no chance of escape with the monster that had it close. It lunged for the kill, but however though, the angel got in its way, and the demon roared and started clawing through the angel's legs and tears through blood stream from its eyes. I wanted to save the angel, but there was nothing I could do. I had to honor the sacrifice and run, so I ran through the hellish escape as fast as I could. The beast soon caught up with me, still swallowing the body of the angel, whose legs had been torn off. And at this mind, my terror changed into anger. I found myself hating this horrible monster. There was no doubt in my mind it was pure evil. and I wanted it to die. When it got to the end, I remember how it responded in insult to my trance. I spoke and it says, "You're going to pay." This was its response. And I had no idea that it would say run and or would follow up to that threat. And nothing would have prepared me for the horrors of the final word, Zenith.